So Samsung decided to go all out this year and go all in with their new flagship phones. Not only are the spec sheets amazing and a nerd's favorite wet dream, but at the Samsung Unpacked 2020 event, we saw 4, technically 3, new models for 2020. We have the true successors to the S10 line being the Galaxy S20 and S20 Plus, the all-new super premium Pro version of the S20, the S20 Ultra, and the reincarnated brother to the disastrous Galaxy Fold, the new Galaxy Z Flip, all of which I will review within the next couple of weeks. So in order to not miss out on the action, I recommend smashing that subscribe button and turning on the notification bell so that you don't miss them. Every year, it seems Samsung's events are bringing in more hype than the year before, almost rivaling Apple's WWDC events and their yearly September iPhone releases. So today we'll be looking at the ultra coveted S20 and S20 Plus line, phones that are here to set the precedent for what smartphones are capable of, with improved displays, bigger batteries, and tremendous improvement to the cameras. We're going to take an in-depth look and do a full review on these bad boys so you can determine for yourself whether you should pick it up or not. So yes, go ahead, run to your kitchen while the intro plays, grab some snacks and maybe a drink or two because this is going to be a good one. Let's jump straight into the unboxings. The unboxing, always my favorite part to these kinds of videos. As you can see, Samsung retains their minimalistic packaging that have a stark contrast to Apple's bright white boxes, and instead opting for these stealthy black boxes with S20 in huge color-coded letters flanked by S20 5G and S20 Plus 5G towards the bottom. We have Samsung Galaxy S20 5G branding on the left, nothing on the right or top, serial number information on the bottom, and on the back we have the contents of what's inside, but we're pretty familiar at this point with what comes inside our box. Grab a relatively small and safe cutting tool to cut open the sticker, pull up on the box, and the top portion will come off, revealing your brand new shiny phone. You might miss it, but check inside the top portion that came off and you'll be greeted with a small packet of literature alongside a SIM ejection tool. We'll see we don't get anything really all that exciting, just a quick reference guide and some terms and conditions. We'll set the star of the show off to the side for now and dig deeper to find our super fast charging adapter that is supposedly new and improved, a USB-C to USB-C cable used to charge and sync our device, and finally our earphones by AKG, which are pretty good, but stand no chance against the newly released truly wireless Galaxy Buds Plus. Review on the way. We now set our eyes on the star of the show, our Samsung Galaxy S20. The bigger variant's unboxing is largely the same. The only difference is we have this bigger box to accommodate for the bigger display, but really, everything else is the same, and that's all there is to it. And now taking a closer look at the exterior of these devices, the S20 can be picked up with a starting price of $999, while the bigger S20 Plus has a starting price of $1199. The S20 I picked up here is the cosmic gray color, but can also be found in cloud blue, cloud pink, cloud white, and aura red, while the S20 Plus can be picked up in cosmic black, cosmic gray, cloud blue, aura blue, cloud white, and aura red. The colors differ here and there. I don't know why, like aura blue I picked up at Best Buy, but isn't on Samsung's website. I don't know, man, it's weird. But anyway, here at the bottom we have a color matched antenna band, followed by a microphone, our USB-C connector, our speaker grill, and another antenna line. To the right, we get our power button as well as our volume rocker, and on the top we see another microphone, an antenna band, and our SIM tray. We don't have much action going on the left side, as now noticeably absent is the dedicated Bixby button. On the front, we have our beautiful 6.2 or 6.2 inch AMOLED display, with our 10 megapixel selfie camera towards the top and in the middle this time, rather than to the side. On the back, we have Samsung branding towards the bottom, and towards the top left corner is our triple array camera bump, which houses our 3 high quality cameras, along with yet another mic towards the corner, our flash module, and if you picked up the S20 Plus, you'll get that added depth vision camera. Okay, one of the big things this generation of Galaxy line is going to be the displays. Now I know I'm a huge Apple fanboy and, you know, one of Tim Apple's goons just cracks the whip whenever a new Apple product comes out, and there I go handing over my Amex. But luckily, I am not a blind Apple fanboy and do give them their criticism when it is due. On that note, I've always preferred the look and feel of Samsung's displays over Apple's. Even though this video is at 4K 30, it is still really hard to portray on camera just how silky smooth these displays are. Colors pop and are extremely vivid. Text is really sharp and the UI is just extremely fluid. This time around, the smaller S20 measures in at 6.2 inches diagonally, and the bigger S20 Plus has a 6.7 inch display. Although massive, they don't feel massive in the hands. That's what she said, by the way. And that's because bezels here are pretty much non-existent. It is an edge-to-edge display, although interestingly, this year, the S20 line doesn't curve as much around the edges, and that's something Samsung has generally been known for these past couple of years. They both sport 120Hz displays, Quad HD, HDR Plus, OLED displays, and of course both have that invisible ultrasonic fingerprint reader under the display. They do differ slightly though in pixel density, with the S20 having a pixel density of 563 ppi while the S20 Plus having 525. They end up looking the same though, it's really just accommodating for the bigger display. For the casual Samsung fans, the 120Hz is a game changer and is something I wish the iPhones would have. Basically, in the most dumbed down way I can explain it, the refresh rate of a display is the number of times your phone display updates within a second. Most phones today are 60Hz, so this doubles that and essentially means the S20 and S20 Plus are refreshing and displaying up to 120 frames a second, resulting in this extremely fluid and weirdly soothing sensation on the glass display. It's almost like, imagine this. Imagine having a single sheet of paper on a desk and simply moving it to the right and left. Like it feels the same way, it's just so true to life and looks amazing. The only thing is though, these phones can achieve 120Hz, but out of the box are set to 60Hz. That's because the 120Hz setting is going to be limited to only 1080p, downscaling the resolution of the phone. This is likely due to save on battery, but the 60Hz does increase to that super juicy and crisp full resolution 1440p. So it's basically one of two options. You can't get the best of both worlds here. It's either amazing fluidity at 120Hz refresh rate or that ultra crisp full resolution at 1440p. Yeah, kind of bummer, but beggars can't be choosers, I suppose. But another neat thing about this new display is now Samsung increased the touch sensitivity to a 240Hz sample rate. This basically means the phone now responds to touch input twice as fast as before. So couple this with a 120Hz refresh rate and man, you are in for a treat. Trust me, with this phone, you'll be just like me, cluelessly opening up apps and switching back and forth between menus just to relish in all of that fluid goodness. So like I said before, it's impossible to show you guys a 120 frames per second refresh rate on a 30 frame per second YouTube video. It's just something you'll have to take my word for or go see in person for yourself at your nearest Samsung or Best Buy store. You'll also notice the hole punch for the camera isn't in the corner anymore. It's in the middle, and I'm a big fan of this because normally you don't have much going on in the top middle portion of the display. Nothing important is being blocked, whereas on the S10 line, it was in the corner and some content was occasionally blocked here and there. Internally, we get beast level specs, treading almost into some of the specs found on cheaper laptops and even some low-end desktop computers. Both are going to feature the Snapdragon 865, making this phone extremely snappy, pun intended. A massive 12GB of RAM, way higher than on Apple's iPhones, although in Apple's defense, iOS manages memory extremely well so that huge amounts of RAM aren't exactly necessary, but it's really nice to have all that physical RAM on this device. 128GB of internal storage with the S20 Plus going up to 512 gigs and can be expanded up to 1TB with a micro SD card. It has an IP68 water resistant rating, and the S20 and S20 Plus have a cool 4000 mAh and 4500 mAh battery respectively. This is massive as that 120Hz goodness will require a lot of horsepower, but hard to see definitively how good this battery is on a day-to-day basis. Stay tuned because I will be making one of my infamous battery tests, which are super dope to make but are very time consuming. I'll put up both of these babies, the S20 Ultra and even the Galaxy Z Flip. So again, maybe you should consider hitting subscribe down there, buddy. These are monster specs, and most Geekbench tests have these phones hovering around 920 for the single core and close to 33,000 for multi-core. Again, these are the US Snapdragon versions and not Exynos. The international Exynos variants are notorious for having worse specs and worse battery. Undoubtedly, at the Samsung 2020 Unpacked event, much of the time was dedicated to the tremendous improvement in the camera department. On paper, these specs are phenomenal, but in practicality, the camera software and features take the cake. Both have a 10 megapixel front-facing camera, so your Instagram selfie game is always on point, but on the backside is where the story gets interesting. They both have a triple camera setup, sporting a 12 megapixel main wide angle sensor at f1.8, a 64 megapixel 3x telephoto sensor at f2.0, and a 12 megapixel ultra wide sensor at f2.2, with the S20 Plus sporting more room for a depth sensor. These phones have improved slightly in low light performance since these sensors are actually physically bigger than the prior generations, and taking pictures on these devices is such a treat. There are some software features like single take mode, which takes the pictures for you. You click the shutter once and through some robotic algorithm, it'll take the supposed best pictures for you. It's almost like on iPhone with the burst shots where you press and hold and it'll quickly take a lot of pictures and then highlights the ones the phone thinks are the best ones. So it's kind of sort of like the same thing but different. I'm not sure I'll use this feature all that much as normally, you the human probably know best when is the best and most precise moments to hit that shutter to take your shots. What is interesting, increasingly, these phones are getting better and better, adding more megapixels. But, I mean, come on, most of us are going to use these photos, upload them to Instagram or Facebook or Twitter and forget about them, and what most of these sites do is downscale your images anyway, unless you resize it and stuff. I mean, Facebook is absolutely the worst when it comes to this. Even iPhone users, if you have the new 11 Pro Max or if you pick this S20 up, take a picture with the rear cameras, upload it to Facebook, and you'll see it'll look like a standard HD, maybe 2 megapixel photo. It's crazy. But another cool aspect to these new phones is what Samsung calls space zoom. So there's hella optical and software zoom on this phone, up to an insane 30 times hybrid zoom. And best yet, when you start zooming in to try and look at the facial features of ants, you'll get this nice little window here that shows you what the heck you're zooming in on, and cause sometimes it looks like a dark fuzzy mess to be completely honest, so that's really nice to have. But not done yet with cameras. The best thing is that both phones are well equipped and capable for 8K recording. Like what? On a smartphone? This is huge, but there are a few asterisks attached to the 8K recording. First off, 8K video is somewhere around 35, I think 33 megapixels per frame. Let that sink in. Per frame. So not only will the size of these videos be massive, but there are physical limitations to this. Namely, you have to have a sensor big enough to do this. It's like trying to record 4K video on your original iPhone 2G. Like it's just physically impossible, you know what I mean? So that means you need at least a 33 megapixel sensor to do so. And the main sensor is only 12. We've hit a roadblock here. Luckily, Samsung has a solution for us. The 3x telephoto lens is 64 megapixels. So problem solved, right? Well, yes, but with some minor annoyances. Namely, when you switch to the 8K setting, it'll transition over to the 3x telephoto lens and zoom in much closer than you were filming at 4K. So it does take some adjusting. Basically, if recording at 8K, you will need more space and will basically have to back up more than you would recording with the main 12 megapixel lens at 4K since it zooms in a lot more. Secondly, the 8K setting doesn't allow, or rather doesn't support video effects or tracking autofocus. Why? Do I look like a Samsung camera engineer? But amazing cameras nonetheless. 8K video will just be insane. Like I can't wait for the day we can stream 8K content say from YouTube or one day Netflix over 5G in a matter of seconds, which speaking of, makes a great transition to discuss the 5G capabilities of the phones. While the S20 and S20 Plus are definitely 5G equipped and capable, 5G connectivity is still in a trial phase, if that's what you want to call it. It's still in its infancy, and while the top bar may say 5G once you have your SIM card hooked in, it's actually sub 5G. These phones can't do millimeter waves, and really is a marginal increase in performance over your good old reliable 4G, maybe a 10 to 15% increase in speed, so not quite revolutionary yet, but I predict in the next couple years, we'll start seeing massive rollouts of these amazing flagship phones capable of fully taking advantage of 5G once it becomes the norm. So at the end of the day, how good are these phones? Really, there's very little to hate about these phones. I've had the phones for about a week or so now and have used the S20 Plus as my main driver for the past 3 days and honestly have very little on the negative side. The only small nitpick I have is that you can't do that full 1440p resolution with the 120Hz refresh rate. That definitely would have been dope, but I can only imagine how quickly the battery would drain. This phone feels slightly thicker than the previous S10, but again, that's not a problem as I would prefer a slightly thicker phone so long as it has a bigger battery. I'm really excited for my battery drain test on this new batch of Galaxy generations just to see how long they can last. The 120Hz display is to die for, it's buttery smooth. If you guys have ever used the iPad Pros, it's exactly like that. Samsung's displays are as sharp, as crisp, and as vivid as ever. You have tremendous improvements to cameras and some cool software features that further accentuate those terrific cameras. And we have bigger batteries, so what's not to love here? If these phones are this great, I cannot wait to get my hands on my S20 Ultra, set to arrive in the coming weeks. But what do you guys think? I think if you have an S10, this is a worthy upgrade, and that's saying a lot. Most times with like Apple for example, unless you're a die-hard fan, it's hard to justify an immediate yearly upgrade, but with these, to me it's 100% worth it. This is what all modern smartphones should be: sleek, powerful, great cameras, and all around pretty well-rounded. But what do you think? Are you a Galaxy fan? If so, which of these new phones are you most excited for? Are you an Apple fan and kind of jealous at the features and specs of these new phones? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll be back soon with my full review of the S20 Ultra and the Z Flip. Really soon, so stay tuned for that. And with that being said, I'm clocking out for now. I'll catch you all later.